Let's start with one here. Let's look here first.
Now this one.
Then here.
This one, Avi?
And please here. Let's try again. Alon.
חבר'ה, אין לנו זמן, עכשיו פה. Now here, please, to Avi, everyone. And White House photographer, please.
Daniel?
אוקיי, עכשיו על הספר.
רגע, הראש מוטי.
היום.
להסתכל על ה...
Daniel, okay?
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
חברי הכנסת והקהל מתבקשים לקום. כבוד הנשיאים, כבוד ראש הממשלה וכבוד יושב ראש הכנסת.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Kevork Almassian. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's live streaming, whether you're joining us on YouTube, on Rumble, or on Gunning Word. I would like to thank, of course, I want to thank our dear friend with Access, but unfortunately, he's not going to be present with us to moderate the live chat for probably the next 2 weeks. I will let you know when he comes back as soon as possible. Today, we are diving into a story that is both political and theological. A story where faith, myth, and power intersect. As Donald Trump visits Israel, we are witnessing an extraordinary spectacle, a fusion of religious symbolism and geopolitical theater. Before the visit, Jared Kushner, Ivanka Trump, and Steve Witkoff were seen performing rituals at the Western Wall in Jerusalem, a carefully crafted scene designed to sanctify politics through the language of prophecy. In Tel Aviv, Kushner declared Israel's moral exceptionalism, saying Israelis chose not to replicate barbarism, but to stand for values. This is what he said, as if the devastation in Gaza had been an act of mercy. Across Israel, billboards now proclaim Cyrus the Great is alive. A not so subtle reference to Trump as a modern-day liberator of the Jewish people. During his speech, Trump admitted that moving the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem was essentially a favor to none other than the Adelsons, one of his main donors, whom he profoundly said have visited the White House more than anyone else. And he even asked Miriam Adelson whether she loved Israel or America more. A question that speaks volumes about where Washington's loyalties truly lie. Then came the crowning statement. Trump said, "We have the strongest military in the history of the world. We gave a lot to Israel, but you used them well. This is what Trump said. This is how Trump described the Israeli onslaught on Gaza as proof of American weapons working perfectly. Finally, Netanyahu declared victory, claiming that Sinwar, Deif, Haniyeh, Nasrallah, and Assad are all gone. Sinwar, Deif, Haniyeh, Nasrallah, and Assad are all gone, while Trump announced the dawn of a so-called New Middle East, an age of faith and hope. So tonight, we will unpack what this new age really means. Is it the dawn of peace or the consecration of perpetual domination cloaked in divine language? I'm trying to play the video and it doesn't play. I was going to show you the video of, let's see. So I'm back. It seems there was a problem in the browser, but here we go again. This is the video which I wanted to show you, and this is the, I truly don't know what is going on, but now we are back again, and this is the video which I wanted to show you before we continue our conversation. So this is Witkov, and that was Jared Kushner in the Western Wall. And this is going to be Ivanka Trump, basically. This is Ivanka Trump also in the Western Wall. I'm trying to stop that video. Yes, it should stop. Yes, now I think we can see this also perfectly. So many people aren't happy with the these visits, but why am I showing you this, and why Trump's visit was preceded by these rituals in the Western Wall? Please stay with us, because this is very, very important. They're trying to mix between theology and politics, and they're going to use religion and theology for the sake of dominance and domination, basically, on the region. But before that, Jared Kushner also made another controversial statement while on visit in Israel, and this was before Trump's arrival.
Instead of replicating the barbarism of the enemy, you chose to be exceptional. You chose to stand for the values that you stand for. And I couldn't be prouder to be a friend of Israel, somebody who supports Israel, and somebody who fights very strongly to see Israel survive, succeed, and to achieve its fullest potential.
So, according to him, Israel refused to replicate the barbarism, basically, in the Gaza Strip, and acted in a very humane manner, according to him. And this is a footage for the people to know what does that basically mean for Jared Kushner, because to be honest with you, any person with functioning eyes can see that this is not how non-barbarism looks like, let's say. And this is not how mercifulness looks like. And this is not how wars look like. And this is not how self-defense in my opinion, looks like. Look at this, the outcome of the war and the onslaught against Gaza. Sheer barbarism, in my opinion. And unfortunately, we are told, like right to our faces, that whatever we are seeing nowadays in Gaza are just not only justified, but also they're celebrating it as a victory. But look at this footage in the Gaza Strip, understand the gravity of the manner of the situation, and notice that there are neighborhoods where not one standing, there is no one standing building. This is what Gaza Strip nowadays looks like. And unfortunately, nowadays we're living at times when people can simply change the meaning of the words. They can change the meaning of self-defense, they can change the meaning of wars, they can change the meaning of genocide, they can change the meaning of ethnic cleansing, they can change the meaning of barbarism and what is merciful and what is not, because they can. These people hold enormous power over the world with their money, with their positions, status, with their relationships, and with the weapons that the empire has, basically, which Trump boasted about them, right? I mean, we, the ordinary people, cannot define what self-defense is. They are the ones capable of putting ink on paper and violating, basically, those regulations and rules which were all set a few decades ago after the end of World War II, that we thought that never again was a symbol that humanity will be stick to, right? Something that this type of indiscriminate bombardment of civilian population, where officially, I think the number of the civilian deaths is over 70,000 in 2 years, but the number is higher than that. And the number of the injured, both physically and mentally, the traumatized people, probably the entire population of Gaza, the 2 million people, they are either dead or physically injured or psychologically injured, right? And this is how you can destroy a people in part or in whole. You cannot go and kill 2 million people for it to be called a genocide. You can destroy them, basically, their livelihoods, their past, their present, and you give them no hope for the future. And this is how you commit a genocide, basically, right, against the people. I'm going to be blatantly honest with you today, and this is something that I have vowed myself for a long time to tell you the truth. And I don't really care what many people would say about this and how many people will criticize me for saying this. I truly don't care, because what I do care is that we have to tell the truth to the people. And the truth is, what happened in the region in the past 2 years is worse than what happened after the Six-Day Wars in 1967. So there are few historical incidences in the region which shaped the outlook of the Middle East. One of which was the 1948, the Declaration of Israel. The Arabs were the Palestinian people were expelled from their homes. It was called the Nakba. When the Arabic armies attacked Israel, they were defeated, right? So that has shaped how the Middle East looked like for decades to come. The defeat of 1967 of Jordan, Egypt, and Syria. In 67, Israel occupied the West Bank, East Jerusalem, Gaza, Sinai, and the Golan Heights. This was a major event in the region, which again shaped the outlook and the future of the geopolitical future of the region. And then we had the 1973 war, which again shaped the image and the outlook of the Middle East when Syria and Egypt attacked against Israel. And for the first time, they were capable of navigating, let's say, through the defenses of Israel and scoring some political and military points against Israel. And this has accelerated two paths, basically, one of which was diplomatic approach with Egypt. They have joined the Camp David Accord. Syria has chosen a different path, more a militarized path, let's say. So now, in my opinion, this is everything that which came after October 7, and I want everybody to understand I am not blaming the Palestinians. The only blame for the destruction of the Palestinian people, the only blame lies on Israel, because Israeli reaction to the October 7 event, which they let it happen, in my opinion, they were watching Hamas operatives planning this attack, and they let it happen to unleash this barbaric onslaught against the Palestinians. In my opinion, the Palestinian people have been in part or in whole destroyed in the Gaza Strip. When you see the footage in Gaza, that the infrastructure is gone, the water, sanitation, the universities, the mosques, everything that a human being needs for bread, for food, for production, for everything, fishery, is gone. So Israel, in my opinion, the sheer barbarity of the response against the Palestinians, was it anticipated by Hamas or not? I don't know. But in my opinion, now I'm not blaming the Palestinians, but I am criticizing Hamas. I have been criticizing for Hamas for a long time. This is nothing new on this channel, right? And I criticize Hamas, of course, for starting a huge, let's say, military event in the region on October 7 without even coordinating with its allies. Some people come and say, but this was the secrecy of the matter was very important. They should not tell anyone. Israelis knew about it. Israelis let it happen. And the Israelis enacted the Hannibal Directive to kill more of their civilians, to activate the Hannibal Directive. By activating the Hannibal Directive, they killed their own people, and then they started atrocity propaganda in order to kill Palestinians. So when you go into such a big confrontation against Israel without informing your allies, and especially Hezbollah and Iran in this case, you are forcing other players to come into your support, because you know that Hezbollah, at least Hezbollah and Ansarullah, their moral and religious obligation will force them to come to your help. And especially that in the past 14 years, when Hezbollah intervened in Syria, saying our war in Syria is for the sake of Palestine, because if Syria is gone, Palestine is gone. This is what Hezbollah said. Now, when the Palestinians are under attack, and if Hezbollah doesn't respond and join this fight against Israel, then they will be called hypocrites. They will lose their credibility. They will say that they are a sectarian group, that they are not fighting for the Palestinians, but rather they're fighting for the Assad regime. So Hezbollah opened a front line against Israel, and they have lost their entire leadership, right? And once the assassination of Nasrallah happened in September 2024, in early December 2024, Assad was gone. Why? One of the reasons why Assad was gone, Nasrallah represented, Nasrallah was a figure, he had an enormous positive impact on the morale of the Lebanese people who are with the resistance, with fighting against Israel, let's say militarily. And among the Syrian army soldiers, very few people know the impact of Nasrallah on the region. Nasrallah's photos and pictures were everywhere in Syria, especially in the Syrian army posts. Like if there is a checkpoint in the street of Syrian army, you will see Bashar's photo and Nasrallah's photo, right? Everywhere. And many soldiers in the Syrian army, but most of them, they used to watch Nasrallah's speeches and get this energy and motivation from him. And when Nasrallah wanted to deliver a strategic message, everybody knew that this also represents the Syrian stance. They used to listen to Nasrallah, also understanding what is going on in Syria. So once Nasrallah is gone, and just before that, when Hamas opened this front line, Hezbollah was overstretched. They had the presence in Lebanon and they had the presence in Syria. So they had to withdraw from Syria and go to southern Lebanon to defend their villages once Israel started its ground offensive. So what happened is Hezbollah left the Syrian scene and some of the front lines were emptied, right? So by opening a front line against Israel, Hamas opening a front line, and the deception of Israel by letting them enacting the Hannibal Directive, killing many of their own citizens, and doing atrocity propaganda, then killing the leadership of Hezbollah and knocking out Assad, this has led into enormous replications, geopolitical replications on the region. For those who supported the axis of resistance, this was a big blow against them. So now that a ceasefire agreement has been reached, when I see what the Palestinians have gained, I'm not talking about Hamas. What have the Palestinians gained? They have gained sympathy all around the world. The image of Israel is completely shattered. Forget about the mainstream media, forget about the standing ovations, the controlled oppositionist podcasts, etc. The real issue for Israel is how can they repair their image now? And that is something, in my opinion, nothing can repair that. But on the ground, Israelis are still capable of exerting their will and hegemony through military means. So even if the entire world nowadays hates on Israel, if the United States or China or Russia or any superpower won't come and stop Israel forcefully on its expansionist agenda of a greater Israel project, then nothing can stop Israel. And all Arabic countries are also saying this behind closed doors, and I will come to that later. Richard Medhurst said strategically this ceasefire will only benefit Israel. He's correct. I truly also hope that Richard, he's also a friend of mine, would go one step further and say this was not a victory for the Palestinians. And I'm not speaking about the Hamas, jihad groups. No, I'm talking about Palestinian people, 2 million people living in Gaza. How many? 3 million, 4 million people living in the West Bank. This was not a victory for them. They are sugarcoating now this ceasefire agreement, so-called ceasefire agreement. They put lots of smoke screens and sugarcoated it into humanitarian terms. But the core of the issue is this is an Oslo 2.0. This is an acceptance of a Palestinian Authority rule, which is a collaborator with the Israelis, a collaborator with the Saudis, collaborator with the Emiratis, who are all already normalizing ties, whether directly or indirectly, with Israel. Right? So when you see banners like this just before the arrival of Trump to Israel, comparing him to Cyrus the Great is alive, they say. And when, Trump has given a speech in the Knesset, and speaking in Israel, Trump suggested he moved the embassy to Jerusalem as a promise to the Adelsons, who, he says, have paid more visits to the White House than anyone he can think of. He then says he asked Miriam if she loves Israel or America more, and she refused to answer.
Broken promises from many other American presidents. You know that. They kept promising. I never understood it until I got there. There was a lot of pressure put on these presidents. It was put on me too, but I didn't yield to the pressure. But every president for decades said, we're going to do it. The difference is I kept my promise and officially recognized the capital of Israel and moved the American embassy to Jerusalem. Isn't that right, Miriam? Look at Miriam. She's back there. Stand up, Miriam. Stand up. Miriam and Sheldon would come into the office. They'd call me. He'd call me. I think they had more trips to the White House than anybody else I could think of. Look at her sitting there so innocently. She's got 60 billion in the bank, 60 billion. And I think she's saying no more. And she loves Israel, but she loves it, and they would come in, and her husband was a very aggressive man, but I loved him. He was a very aggressive, very supportive of me. And he'd call up, can I come over and see you? I say, Sheldon, I'm the president of the United States. It doesn't work that way. He'd come in and do good though. But they were very responsible for so much, including getting me thinking about Golan Heights, which is probably one of the greatest things to ever happen.
Imagine he's basically saying that thanks to the money of the donors, he recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and also recognized the Golan Heights as Israeli territory. This is the president of the United States basically saying that $100 million from a person who has over 60 billion in a bank account, maybe even more, has changed his mind. This is a policy of a nation. This is a policy of a state. This is a superpower president saying that $100 million made me change my mind about the Golan Heights. Isn't that crazy?
Miriam, stand up, please. She really is. I mean, she loves this country. She loves this country. Her and her husband are so incredible. We miss him so dearly. But I actually asked her, I'm going to get her in trouble with this, but I actually asked her once, I said, so Miriam, I know you love Israel. What do you love more, the United States or Israel? She refused to answer. That might mean Israel, I must say.
Wow. Man, I don't know what to say. Imagine one of your major donors is basically refusing to answer whether she loves the United States more than Israel. And she's a dual citizen, right? She's American, Israeli. And what does this really tell about all these donors? Whether they are Zionists or not, whether they are AIPAC or not. Who are they basically serving? Are they serving Americans or are they serving Israel? I think the answer is not really difficult to know, basically. But it feels to me, at least, that this backlash in the United States among the right-wing, conservative, patriot, call them whatever you want, it is justified. It is justified to say, what the hell are we doing here? We're supporting, or many of the donors in our countries, many of the lobbyists in our country, they're lobbying and funding our politicians, and they have either dual loyalty or their loyalty is for Israel. And then Trump, of course, boasts about the weapons he has given to the Israelis to carry on one of the worst humanitarian catastrophes in the world.
The United States has the greatest and most powerful military in the, right now, history of the world. I can tell you we have weapons that nobody's ever dreamt of. I only hope we never have to use them. I rebuilt the military. I was proud to do it, but some of the things I hated to do. I hated certain of the weapons because the level of power is so enormous, it's so dangerous, so bad. But we have to do what we have to do. We make the best weapons in the world, and we've got a lot of them. And we've given a lot to Israel, frankly. And I mean, Bibi would call me so many times, can you get me this weapon, that weapon, that weapon? Some of them I never heard of, Bibi, and I made them. But we'd get them here, wouldn't we? Huh? And they are the best. They are the best. But you used them well. It also takes people that know how to use them. And you obviously used them very well. But so many that Israel became strong and powerful, which ultimately led to peace. That's what led to peace.
Like they speak about the complete destruction of city, basically, the lives of 2 million people like this as a great success. And we're going now, like this is what peace looks like for them. And this is how efficient Israel was in using the American weapons. I truly don't know if, like, do you think Trump knows? Do you really think that Trump have seen these photos like this, for example? I mean, I'm sure somebody has shown it to them, right? Like, look, this is Rafah. Those were mostly done by American weapons. And Trump is boasting about it. What is he boasting about? What is he really? I'm serious, because this is more than a complicity. Look. Can you see? Has anyone in the Trump administration shown these photos to him? But they really don't care. They really don't care, because what they really care about is how they defeated or how they marginalized or how they downgraded some of the players in the region, state, non-state, or non-state actors. And this is what Netanyahu basically said during his speech. He said, Israel achieved amazing victories over Hamas and the entire Iran terror axis. Sinwar, Dev, Haniya, those were all Palestinians. Nasrallah from Hezbollah and Assad are gone.
October 7th, Israel did what it had to do. With indomitable courage, we set out to defend our people, to defeat our enemies, and to release our hostages. Our heroic soldiers fought like lions. They fought on the front lines of civilization and barbarism. Israel achieved amazing victories over Hamas and the entire Iran terror axis. Sinwar, Dev, Haniya, Nasrallah, Assad, they're all gone.
I truly wonder what would be the opinion of some of the talking heads in the Islamic world, Palestinian talking heads, some of whom you know personally because you follow their YouTube channels as well. What is their opinion about Netanyahu, who basically also gloating and boasting about getting rid of not only the leaders of the Palestinian leaders and Nasrallah, but also Assad? Why would he even mention Assad in this case if Assad was not important in the axis of resistance, and and why would he mention him if he hadn't played any role in supporting and assisting the Palestinian armed struggle against the Israelis and also the Lebanese? Dili Hussein is Dili Hussein, whatever he says, I will tell you something very clearly. Everything Dili Hussein says on his YouTube channel are well calculated and scripted. Dili Hussein is not some normal person talking to you on YouTube in his room like myself. Dili Hussein has an agenda. Dili Hussein has an ideological affiliation, religious affiliation, and probably financial ties. And you ask yourself the question, why, once the regime change happened in Syria, Dili Hussein was one of the first journalists who was received by Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, who has proven to be a great asset for the CIA, the MI6, and now he's going to normalize ties with Israel, right? Why would Jolani receive him as one of the first journalists? Someone says the MI6 pillars. If you connect the dots and see what these people speak once they are in the UK and how they speak and direct their speech to the Islamic communities, and at some times they play a very strong identity politics and mobilize and radicalize the Islamic communities in the UK and abroad, you will understand who has an invested interest in radicalizing any Muslim community in Europe. And if a Muslim community has been radicalized, then with who this clash would be in Europe, they're either going to export them to Syria or Iraq like they did in the past with ISIS, or if there is going to be these people going to be used in any domestic conflict, and against who? Because this is going to happen. A radicalized Muslim, in my opinion, serves the Israeli agenda in Europe, especially Netanyahu's agenda, and this increases more, let's say, I don't want to even call them far right, but right-wing groups in the region. It emboldens them, and it creates this alliance between Christians and Zionists against Islamic communities. Any person in the UK, especially in the UK, who is spewing hate against white people as a Muslim publicly, right? Spewing hatred against white native people in the UK. Any person who is radicalizing the Muslim communities in the UK and he's not getting arrested or questioned, or police is not coming to his apartment to confiscate the electronics like they do with the pro-Palestine camp people who are peaceful and civilized, you need to ask yourself a question, why? And I'm not calling for it, but if the police goes after Richard Medhurst, it goes against many civilized journalists in the UK, George Galloway and others, Vanessa Beeley, Kit Klavenberg, so many people were detained and arrested under the Terrorism Act. Meanwhile, the people who are literally spewing hatred and saying that we will become a majority in the UK as Muslims, we will become a majority and we will occupy your country, we'll do this and do that to you. These people are not even questioned, right? Why do you think that is? Ask yourself that question. You will know the answer. So as we watch, my friends, this charade basically in the Knesset, one of the commentators said the scene in the Knesset with Trump is like watching the inverse of a war crimes tribunal. The leaders and facilitators of the Gaza genocide are congratulating each other and applauding their crimes. But you know, in the past few weeks, I've been telling you also on this channel that this is not Netanyahu's war. This is the war of the Zionists. This is the war of the US empire. This is not a war of one person who just woke up and he decided to unleash this barbaric onslaught against the Palestinians. And this is the opposition leader, Yair Lapid. He says there is no genocide, right? This is all manipulated.
To all those who demonstrated against Israel these past 2 years on the streets of London and Rome, in Paris and in Columbia University. I do not represent the government. As you know, I am the leader of the opposition. And I tell you, then you were deceived. You were deceived. Propaganda experts, funded by terror money, manipulated you. Now that the war has stopped, you have time and a chance to go and learn the facts. The truth is, there was no genocide. No intentional starvation. To all those.
So this is the leader of the opposition, by the way. So imagine both sides of the aisle, people in the government and people who are oppositionists, basically, of Netanyahu. They both say there was no genocide. And I'm not here to speak about the legality of the manner, but as a human being watching the complete destruction of 2 million people city over their heads, and there is no standing building, I truly ask myself the question, then if it's not a genocide, then what is it? Like, okay, let's suppose, for an argument's sake, just for like, this is not a genocide, or there was no intent to commit genocide. Then what was it? How do we define the outcome of this war? And how do we define this footage and images coming from Gaza? Are we going to say those are AI made? No, those are real drone footages. Those are real satellite images I've been showing you. If it's not genocide, then what is it? Like, I'm seeing posts of Israeli paid influencers basically showing the complete destruction of Gaza and saying, don't start a war if you can't win. What does that mean? When I see that footage, are you saying that you started a war and we will completely annihilate you as civilians and combatants? Like, when was the last time that it was justifiable to kill 70,000 civilians in 2 years and call it a war? In the Syrian war, just for you to know, in the Syrian war for 14 years, how many times you heard about Assad killing civilians, right? Assad is using his military might against unarmed civilians. Assad is committing massacres. Assad is committing genocide. Assad is dropping gas on his own people. Assad has mass graves. Assad has hanged hundreds of thousands of people, disappeared hundreds of thousands of people, etc., etc., etc. What is the death toll in Syria? Right? It is between 500,000 and 600,000 in 14 years, and it's a huge number. But if we put this number into context, what is the number of the combatants in this casualty rate? It's 2/3. So let's suppose the number is 500,000, right? Of 500,000, you have 2/3 of them over 350,000 of them are combatants. Over 1/3 of civilians, which is still a huge number. Huge number. According to the Israeli internal evaluation in the Israeli occupation forces, around 82% to 88% of the casualties are civilians in Gaza. Compare it to Syria, right? That was called a genocide, and this is called self-defense. You make up your mind. Those are the facts. But Donald Trump promised us Trump promised us a new Middle East. What does this new Middle East, what is it about, and what is he professing?
This is not only the end of a war, this is the end of an age of terror and death and the beginning of the age of faith and hope and of God. It's the start of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel and all the nations of what will soon be a truly magnificent region. I believe that so strongly. This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East. This is not...
So, this is the beginning of a new Middle East, right? There are two things. This means two things. The first thing, in my opinion, let's talk about a little bit of theology. I think he is professing the third temple. Now, for those who don't know, what is the history behind the third temple? Over 2.5 millennia ago, the first temple was built by Solomon, right? And the first temple lasted until its destruction by the Babylonians. Then centuries later came the second temple, when Cyrus, which now they call Trump this Cyrus the Great, right? The centuries later, the second temple was allowed by Cyrus, because Cyrus allowed the exiles to return. Ezra, Nehemiah, and Zerubbabel, those who laid the foundations of the second temple, right? But the second temple too was destroyed in 70 CE by the Romans. And then many people, especially Jewish people, were asking the question, will there ever be a third temple? Now, to many, especially the religious and messianic ones, the third temple is the next chapter of redemption. If Israel in 1948 was a rebirth of the Jewish nation, this is what the Zionists believe, right? Then the temple rising again would be the culmination of destiny. So in their mind, since 1948, since they established the Jewish state in Palestine, they believed the third temple would be the culmination of destiny. Now, Orthodox Jews or Orthodox Jewish thought holds a variety of views on who will build it. That's also an important question. Who is going to build the third temple, right? Some say the Messiah will build it. Others say that God may drop it from heaven, but humans will complete aspects like the gates. Now, in some strands of Christian Zionism, the third temple is even more loaded. It becomes a prophetic signpost, right? A stage for end-time drama, or the Antichrist, tribulation, and ultimately Christ's return. This is how the Christian Zionists see. But that is a Christian interpretation, right? For Jews who hold to the idea, the third temple is anticipated as part of the Messianic age, not as a sign tied to Christ's second coming. So the Christian Zionists in the US who want for the third temple to be established, they have different reasons for it compared to the Jews, and both of them do not go in harmony together, right? So let's pause for a moment and settle something crucial. In Judaism, Jesus is not the Messiah, right? The mainstream Jewish view is that Jesus didn't fulfill the prophecies. He didn't rebuild the temple. He didn't bring universal peace. He did not gather all Jews back to the land. And he was, in Jewish eyes, a mortal teacher, not divine. So Jews await a Messiah who is yet to come, a human descendant of King David, who in his era will restore Israel, rebuild the temple, and bring about justice and peace. Hence, in Jewish expectation, the coming of the Messiah is intimately tied to the temple. So they want to build the temple so that Messiah comes. only in the Messianic age can the temple be rebuilt. It is not a precondition, but rather part of the consummation, right? So some Jewish thinkers say the Messiah will build the temple. Others say God will initiate it and humans will assist. In summary, Jews do not believe Jesus has already come in the sense of Christians believe. And they're still waiting a future Messiah who, among his tasks, will restore the temple. So if you're a Christian, maybe you should ask yourself some questions. They don't even believe that Jesus was a Messiah. Anyways, this is the first reason, or this is the first thing that Trump means by the new Middle East. It's building the third temple, and it is going to be probably on the destruction of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which, if you ask me now in October 2025, what is going to be the reaction of the Islamic countries? Sorry, nothing. All the Arab and Islamic countries are, most of them, nowadays embedded with the US, and they think about their financial prosperity and their pockets, and they're building AI cities, smart cities, and they're thinking about banking, cryptos. They forget about the Arab anger and Arab solidarity and Arab big people and Arab Islamic world coming to save the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Is the fourth holiest site in Islam. Do you really think if Israel builds now the third temple on the ashes of the Aqsa Mosque, do you think that Jolani will come to fight against Israel? Do you think the king of Jordan is going to fight against Israel? Do you think Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is going to fight against Israel? Do you think Mohammed bin Salman is going to come and fight against Israel? Do you think that Mohammed bin Zayed is going to come and fight against Israel? If you really think so, then I have a brand new mRNA vaccine to sell you. It's not going to happen. Nothing is going to happen. There's going to be condemnation statements and some street anger in the streets of the Islamic world, and that's it. Nothing is going to happen. Forget about it. In the contrary, Arab countries are already expanding their cooperation not only with the US, but also with Israel. Those are secret files. Even as key Arab states condemned the war in the Gaza Strip, they quietly expanded security cooperation with the Israeli military, leaked US documents reveal. This is according to the Washington Post. Over the past 3 years, facilitated by the US, senior military officials from Israel and 6 Arab countries came together for planning meetings in Bahrain, Egypt, Jordan, and Qatar. Qatar, whose capital was struck on September 9 by Israeli missiles targeting Hamas leaders, was one of the countries that had quietly strengthened ties with the Israeli military. You know how much I spoke about Qatar on this channel, and I told you it's the biggest psyop in the region, including Al Jazeera, right? In May 2024, the document shows senior Israeli and Arab military officials convened at Al Udeid Air Base, a major US military facility in Qatar. They've been meeting there. The documents show that the threat posed by Iran was the driving force behind the closer ties, which have been fostered by the US military's central command known as CENTCOM. One document describes Iran and its allied militias as the axis of evil, and another includes a map with missiles superimposed over Gaza and Yemen, where Iranian allies hold power. 5 CENTCOM PowerPoint presentations obtained by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists and reviewed by the Washington Post detail the creation of what the US military describes as the regional security construct. In addition to Israel and Qatar, the construct includes Bahrain, Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. The documents refer to Kuwait and Oman as potential partners that were briefed on all meetings. Even as security cooperation with Israel expanded behind closed doors, Arab leaders denounced its war in Gaza. The leaders of Egypt, Jordan, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia said the Israeli campaign amounted to a genocide. Qatar's leaders have issued some of the most scathing condemnations. At the UN General Assembly in September, the Qatari emir, the hypocrite, called the conflict a genocidal war waged against the Palestinian people and accused Israel of being a state hostile to its environment, complicit in building an apartheid system. The Saudi Foreign Ministry condemned Israel in August for what it described as the starvation and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. In a note, political sensitivities, the documents state that the partnership doesn't form a new alliance and that all meetings would be held in confidence. In 2022, General Kenneth Frank McKenzie, then CENTCOM's commander, described the partnership in congressional testimony as an effort building on the momentum of the Abraham Accords. The agreement establishing diplomatic ties with Israel and Morocco, the UAE, and Bahrain. While Qatar and Saudi Arabia do not have formal diplomatic relationship with Israel, the CENTCOM documents show the important behind-the-scenes role that both powerful Gulf states played in the nascent or the possible partnership. The conference also highlighted the diplomatic sensitivities inherent in these gatherings. A heading reading must not do informed participants that they should not take photographs or provide access to the media. Saudi Arabia played an active role in this collaboration, sharing intelligence with Israel and Arab partners on a broad range of security issues. In a 2025 meeting, a Saudi official and a U.S. intelligence official provided an intelligence overview to partners on political developments in Syria, including the role played by Russia, Turkey, and Kurdish forces in the country. The briefing also covered the threats posed by the Iran-backed Houthi militant group in Yemen and the ISIS operations in Syria and Iraq. A former U.S. defense official speaking on the condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive military issues said that these engagements reflected the Gulf Arab states' pragmatic ties with Israel and their respect for its military prowess. So this is the second thing. You are going to see a new regional order. You will going to see more Arabic countries joining the Abraham Accords, one of which is going to be Syria, under Jolani. And under Jolani, you will see more Syria getting more and more naked in front of Israel. Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, who is the Eli Cohen of the 21st century, going to hand over Eli Cohen's remains and transfer them to Israel soon, according to a Saudi report, which has close ties to the Jolani regime. So everyone and anyone who supported Jolani's takeover of Syria, especially the Palestinians, should ask themselves the questions: have they shot themselves in the leg, or were they always serving someone else, and this someone else has not been the Palestinians? I'm going to raise the bar of criticism today, and I'm going to question whether or not they are serving someone else, and their presence on YouTube is to psyop you and thousands and probably tens of thousands of other people. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have walked through the story tonight, from rituals at the Western Wall to banners hailing Trump as Cyrus, from the weaponization of faith to the boasting over war crimes dressed up as divine victory. We've seen how religion and geopolitics blend into a single narrative, one that sanctifies power, raises accountability, and rewrites history to make domination look like destiny. If you find value in today's analysis, please take a moment to like this video, thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Syriana Analysis so you don't miss future streams. These small actions help me break through censorship algorithms and keep independent journalism alive. And if you like to go a step further, consider supporting Syriana Analysis on Patreon. The link is in the description below, or you can simply scan the QR code on the screen. Your contributions, whether big or small, allow me to stay independent, continue producing in-depth geopolitical analysis, and bring you perspectives you simply won't hear in mainstream and sometimes in even alternative media outlets. You will find, of course, all the relevant links, my friends, in the description below. Thank you once again for tuning in, whether on YouTube, Rumble, or Ganjin World. And we are missing our dear friend Red Access, the moderator. He will come hopefully soon, probably in 10 days. But until next time, this is Kevork Almassian of Syriana Analysis. Stay informed, my friends. Stay critical, and see you in the next stream. Peace be upon you, upon your families. Salam.